Good evening and welcome to Quizzy Monday. We are starting to approach the end of the series. We just finished the second round of University Challenge. We've had the first semi-final of Only Connect. Mastermind is trotting towards the end of round one. So, Quizzy Mondays are starting to draw towards their conclusion for yet another series. But we're still with you for a little while longer, and we're absolutely delighted that we've got a couple of guests on from Only Connect tonight. Before we get going with them, let us just recap who won the Quizzer and Team of the Week last week. Congratulations to Evan Lynch, who won an unprecedented third consecutive Quizzer of the Week title. Second was Nick Paul, and third was Liam McCarthy, who both got league full houses. Team of the Week was won by the Crustaceans, who won last week's Only Connect. Second was Northern Lights, winners of the MQL Buzzer Quiz, and third was Eddie's Inquisitive Fish of Quiz Nations Asia Pacific. Don't forget, you can nominate anyone for Team and Quizzer of the Week. Go to tinyurl.com/ATQ nominations. Nominations close at 5 p.m. every Monday. So, well done to Evan. 3 times on the trot. Nobody's done that before. Victoria Gross has previously done back-to-back wins. Nobody's done 3 before, so well done to Evan. We've got a few people already in the chat. So if you're in the chat, pipe up during the course of the evening. Catherine says, evening. Snazzy Quizzes says, evening. And Gerard says, another evening. So sparkling banter going on in the chat tonight. Long may that continue. But for some more sparkling banter, let us bring on our guests tonight. We have Andy from the Morporkians and Jonathan from the Stridiforms. Good evening, both.
Hi, Gareth. Hi, everyone.
Well, that was quite the thrilling match. Probably a little bit too thrilling for your liking, Andy. Watching that back, how did it feel? It's so close.
It was. I mean, I didn't remember how the scores really went for the episode. I remember dreading having a horrible wall. I think that was the worst wall we've had. And then the vows somehow it felt like we were coming back, and then just at the last minute fell through. But couldn't lose to a nicer team. So.
And indeed, the Stridiforms have been a strong team and came up with some brilliant answers tonight. Jonathan, again, watching that back, you were saying in the chat beforehand, you weren't entirely sure that you'd won that match.
No. Well, first of all, I mean, I should say before I say that, I mean, Andy personally, Andy's buzzing in the missing vowels round was absolutely incredible, and that's what I think one of the things that we're sort of sitting there, sort of staring at him as he racked up point after point after point. But yeah, when we got to the end, I turned to Jonathan when she said that we'd won. I turned to Jonathan. I said, I thought it would be another round, because of course I overlooked the fact that if you get one, I overlooked the fact it's +1 and -1 at the same time. It's not sort of going equal. So at least and we even also avoided the hideous head-to-head at the end as well as a result
yes.
of that. But no, it was very exciting. Very exciting.
I mean, that would have been the other Jonathan versus Andy. Andy, you've been fast on the buzzer the whole time. Would you have relished that, or would you have been terrified?
Much as I'm like, I'd love to have had a go, I was very relieved not to have to test it.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of jumped ahead towards the end, but I think when you've got a match that was that close between two such good teams, you do kind of that ending leaves a lasting memory. But I was interested, and I put it on Twitter early on. I think after the first set of connections in round one, and Victoria got you all singing, and I was just thinking, okay, they're singing the whole of this song, which must mean they've been buzzing really well. They are answering nice and early throughout the rest of the show, and they've got time to fill.
I felt like, I don't know if it was just me in the studio, it felt like we were singing like 6 verses of this song that I didn't know existed. I was like, they can't possibly think that we're going to need all of this. But
it did seem to go on quite a long time. You're right there, and you could tell by the amount of banter that was left in as well. There was quite a bit of sort of crosstalk that was left in. But
testament to 2 great teams, and I mean, just started as it kind of the way it meant to go on. Whose solid knowledge of cocaine came to your aid in that first question there.
I think we actually got it before the cocaine one, but I think the cocaine one is actually as always with the last one, is the total giveaway, because if anybody who's ever seen that film just remembers that scene, because it's just so funny, and it just sticks in your head. And but I think it was then a sort of backfill from that to sneezing. I mean, which is because actually, looking back at it, it was interesting, because on that first one, which I got the song. I mean, nobody else knew the song because it's such an old song, and I got the song, and I think I recited the lines to Jonathan, including when somebody sneezed, and we didn't think, we didn't put two and two together until much later on. So anyway,
yeah. Well, as long as you do put it together, I mean, that's the thing. You want to score something, don't you? And you don't want to let stuff across the studio to the other team. And on the flip side, more Porkins, you want to get off to a good start, and you got a stinker first up. The anagrammatical synonyms. I mean, the thing you dread, I guess, in a semi-final is, they're going to ratchet up the difficulty. At that point, you must have been thinking, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, we had nothing. We were nowhere close. But me and Sarah kind of met through doing cryptic crosswords at school together. And we, like, even in the green room, to keep us calm and keep our brains going, Sarah would bring some like old times crosswords, and we'd sit and do them. So, and it felt like such a crossword thing afterwards. I was one of those. I was kicking myself when I saw the answer, but I would never have in a million years.
Very tough in the time pressure to come up with that, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I think that's the thing.
But we did then have some great questions. Jonathan, great get on the clocks in art.
thank you. I was quite proud of that.
Because I mean, the obvious red herring in that one is David 4:13, or start thinking biblically or something. Well, there isn't a book of David, is there? But
no, but that's what you don't think it's got anything to do with clocks really until
no.
Yeah.
I suppose if you're a massive art buff, you would, but I mean, it was basically the Magritte that was the giveaway, I thought.
Yeah, and then a wonderful the music round. How would you lot been more Porkins, Andy, with music questions? A lot of people kind of dread it, but you lot absolutely nailed this one.
Yeah, well, it's weird actually. I think we'd also kind of going in, we're a bit unsure, but I think almost every episode we'd ended up getting the music question, and there was only one we'd missed. So weirdly, we were actually really excited to have a music question, which is definitely not the normal reaction, but we really enjoyed them. And a great get from Catherine there. So we were very pleased.
Indeed, and so the M&M link as well was good. Of course, it was you got wasn't it? Was the one you buzzed in on, where I believe Chaz Hodges from Chaz and Dave was on that recording. So an unlikely collaborator with M&M.
Yes.
And I really liked the next one that went dead, the Chinese Zodiac question.
It was a great question.
It was. Frustratingly for me, I had said in the green room the day before, do you think we should learn the years for the Chinese Zodiac? I was like, I kind of know what they are, but I don't know what the years are. And I was like, it's fine. It will never come up, because we'd revised so much that hadn't come up at that stage. So I was kicking myself a little bit on that one.
It was an incredibly only connecty sort of question, if I could put it that way, because you needed to know not just the films, but also entirely separate piece of knowledge about. So you needed the titles of the films, an entire separate piece of knowledge, not just about the Chinese New Year's, but the years in which those things happened. So it was, it required more than the usual number of connections really to get it right. So it was a great question, although I think we all hated it.
At the time I hated it, but in hindsight, watching it back, I quite enjoyed it.
In Chaz and Dave news, Chaz Hodges is on loads of stuff. Session musician for Joe Meek. There you go. Thanks for that, Chris. And then more Porkins, you had the gave up their intellectual property one, which was picked up by Stridiforms for a point. I like that question as well, but 4-2 at the end of that first round, it's all still there, isn't it? It's nobody's made a decisive lead at that point.
No, I think going in, we knew the strategies were going to be tough competition, and it was it was one of those things where we were trying not to give too much away to them. So I think they stole 1 or 2 points in that first round.
Because of course,
but I think
because of course by this point
4-2.
we're all in the same half of the draw. We know each other pretty well, even if we haven't even if we hadn't actually played each other, we know each other's strengths and weaknesses pretty well just by chatting. And actually we went out, we'd all been out to dinner together and stuff like that, so
yeah.
Yeah.
But 4-2, I think we were kind of happy with. We were like, like they've got a bit of a lead, but it's still in reach. So
interesting, you're talking about going out for dinner and being in the same half of the draw or whatever. Did you kind of slyly try and get any intelligence on the opposition from teams they'd played previously?
Really, I think like we'd heard about like the building society's questions and things. So we kind of knew that, like, just by chatting and meeting each other, like that your captain was a musician, and then kind of you've obviously, knowing your university challenge team, we knew you were pretty kind of well rounded. So
round 2 couldn't have started much better for you, Andy. You go into it with deficit, but I think you picked up points on 3 of the first 4 questions, and the other one went dead, I think. At that point, you're feeling in the game, presumably. Any of those that you particularly liked?
Well, yeah, I mean, they all fell quite nicely. I think that we were feeling a bit kind of renewed confidence. I mean, Sarah getting the numbers one was great. I mean, I think in our match against Mothers Ruined, when the maths question came up, everyone looked at me and I was panicking and I didn't see it. And then I was like, oh no, another maths question. And my brain was doing all sorts of things. But Sarah's like, oh, it's just the number of and yeah, it was a great spot. And I mean, me and Catherine couldn't quite believe it when she pulled out the Saddam Hussein one. I think that was
brilliant.
Really good.
Yeah. So
I mean, what was particularly brilliant about it was that she actually pulled it out sort of after.
It was kind of, she had the answer and then was shocked that she'd worked out the connection. It was
because again, there were things going on there. You had to spot the Al Tikriti thing and kind of remember Tikrit and it's Iraq, and then you had to spot the Jack Queen King thing, and then you had to kind of make the connection, and it was just really good piece of work, that. And using that little bit of time after the buzz or on a prompt is always good, but to have the presence of mind to fetch that out was really
I was in awe of Sarah that round. Really, she really pulled out.
And then talking of great answers, the next one, the equivocal, God, 1 typical, 2 equivocal. That was a very good piece of deduction, and then working forward from that. Jonathan, was that just really good teamwork on that one?
I think Jonathan actually, I think Jonathan just worked it out on his own, or maybe Josh worked it out on their own. I don't think I had much to do with the answer on that one.
I mean, I was blown away how quickly you guys spotted that one. It was great.
I mean, it's a good round. I also liked your even though it was wrong, the Dutch attack. I think that's up the Medway, wasn't it? It was just getting the year on that was great, because I think if you asked the majority of people in the country, they wouldn't even have a clue that it ever happened.
Well, I miscounted. I mean, what happens is I miscounted the years on the thing, and I sort of subconsciously, and I thought the plague. I thought that must be 1666, so it must be and I don't know what was going on in my head. And I remember saying the answer, because I think they slightly compressed it in the edit. I said in the answer something like 1667, and there was one of those things where there was a sort of short pause, and Victoria said, "Can you name anything which happened in that year?" And I sort of went, "Oh," and then sort of pulled out this fact. So that was nice, but it was wrong.
I almost feel like you were kind of a victim of your like immense knowledge of knowing too much, because we would definitely have just been like, well, it can't be 1667 because we don't know anything that happened in 1667. It must be 1666.
Sometimes you could just know too much, Jonathan, and that's the problem. But what it did mean at the end of that round, and I did like the Doctor in the House Longshanks wannabe one. I think that went dead, didn't it? But I thought that was
did go dead. It was a
great question. It was, again, another one where as soon as you see the answer, you're like, of course it's this. Why did I not see this? But
and you don't see it because you've got all the pressure, and you've got a limited amount of time, and it's and sometimes things either just come to you or they don't come to you, and there's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
That one slipped by, but 8 all going into the walls, and then oh dear God, Andy, oh dear God, that was
Yeah.
the wall from hell.
It just did not suit us at all.
Yeah.
None of us really know anything about the Grand National, so we like even seeing them in the group at the end, we had no idea. I mean, Victoria very kindly like told us she follows the Grand National quite heavy as a gambler. And even she said that she'd have struggled to get that group. Yeah, and then I think it was one of these things where mostly we've been quite good at walls, so we've not ever got to the stage where we haven't got a single group and then we're panicking. Like even the one we didn't do that well, we somehow got all the groups, we just didn't get all the connections. So it was the first real time that we were like panicking, and then it just everything was a blur, and we weren't checking things properly. So
yeah, I mean a real signature. There are 2 signatures I would take away from your team having watched you. One is really, really good on the vowels, particularly you and Andy, but the teamwork on the wall has been superb. Good analytical play, good teamwork, a lot of talking. But in this case, it just, I mean, I was looking at it and I was going, the way you do when you go, okay, oh yeah, so Corbière and Rule the World, okay, Grand National, and then it's like, oh no, and then there's Foynaven, and then there's that one, and then there's that one. It's like too many red herrings, so you need to somehow get in another way.
Couldn't find a way into that one.
Just couldn't find a way.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, Jonathan, watching it for the first time, were you empathizing with
very
that?
much so? I mean, I got the Steve McQueen films more or less straight off, which would have helped to simplify the wall a bit.
Yeah,
and I did know a bit about the horses and about Grand National and stuff like that. But to be honest, it's very easy for me to say I got them while I was sitting on my sofa watching them. I mean, I thought it was a stinker of a wall. It was it was really hard work.
Yeah. I mean, after that, knowing the quality of the team you're up against, Andy, and you got was it 2 points? I think you got in the end.
Yeah, I think so.
Did you think game over at that point?
Yeah, pretty much. We were like, unless they've had a stinker, like, because we were also aware that like it was semi-finals, everything was a lot harder. We're like, there's a chance that they'll have had an equally horrible wall. So I don't think we were like writing anything off, but we were like, we're gonna have to really pull it out for the Vals to have any chance.
Really. And then Jonathan, your wall, I think this might have been you, the Mountaineers connection. I think if you don't have that knowledge, Whymper, Paradis, Messner, Hillary, everybody knows, but but that was just, I mean, that just helped you so much knowing that connection.
Yeah, it did. No, that helped a lot. What we should have realized, which we didn't realize to our cost until about 1 second after the thing, was we should have thought, when we went through those, when we were sort of muttering through those wives of presidents, which was Lady Bird. Somebody should have said, "Oh, of course, Lady Bird is a movie because it's quite a recent movie which we've all seen," and we didn't think about that. And actually, I think Lady Bird was actually in the in the list of president's wives, but it should nonetheless have given us a clue that it might have been a possible red herring for something else, which would obviously have been Saoirse Ronan. But there you go. But it was and those bridges, I can't, I think we tried every combination of bridge except the one which actually worked, So it was, they're all rather obscure bridges as well. They're not the sort of
so
ones.
But nonetheless,
it wasn't an easy wall.
No, it wasn't an easy wall. Again, Andy, when you're looking at their wall,
I mean, similarly, I feel like some of their categories, I feel like we'd have been better off with Saoirse Ronan films than Steve McQueen. And First Ladies, I feel like we'd have been pretty confident with, although that might just be having watched Mastermind with the First Ladies round. but no, I mean the climbers, I don't think we'd have got, or we'd have struggled to get. So
Yeah, Jamie's joining you on
Yeah, it's
this. Helps to
proper
have first
going,
ladies of presidents on Mastermind. Teams obviously didn't have that luxury of reminding you of all of those. No, that's true. So 3-point difference going into the missing vowels. I think you've alluded to it, Andy, knowing that you had to go for it at this point.
yeah, I feel like we'd come back from 3 before, or a similar thing before, so we knew it was possible, but we knew that Jonathan, like, and the whole team were quite good on the vowels. It wasn't going to be easy.
Yeah, University Challenge, veterans used to buzzer quiz action, but you started well. The things that started in Kent, picking up 3 points on that, and basically leveling it up after one set. About as good as you could have hoped at that point.
Yeah, at that point it was everything was going to plan. We were like, okay, we still win this. We have a chance. So.
Jonathan, when at the start of the show, you were saying about not knowing that you'd won. Is something like that where they score heavily in that first round? Does that kind of set that in your mind that actually the other team are doing well, and you kind of get left with that impression?
It sets in your mind, I mean, because you just know you're sort of basically neck and neck, because you get as you know, you don't know the scores from the wall. You sit down, she tells you what the scores are, then you're off. You've got a pretty good idea from that point in your head that you're sort of neck and neck. And and he's brilliant at answering these missing vowels, as we know. So
he really is. And then we had reality TV shows kind of mixed with songs. The two teams split that. So
I'm not embarrassed I didn't get Love Island.
It's never any embarrassment, Andy.
No,
only points. You just take the points where you can get them. Now, before we kind of go on to the denouement, Chris has asked a question. Is there always the same amount of time allocated to missing vowels? It seemed to be over quite quickly. Did you get any sense of how they allocate the time for that?
There's something in the rules that they sent us. I think it's a set amount of time you have, actually, and it's however many questions. Is that right? Or maybe I'm misremembering that.
So I have the feeling that sometimes there are more missing vowels than at other times, but I don't think it's a huge. I don't think it's a huge.
I think it's a time thing. I think they have a set amount of time. So then, if you get through them quickly, you can do more.
Exactly. I think that if you've used up, I mean, you've got to have whatever it is. It's a bit like the point we were talking about earlier on about banter. I mean, you've got to end up with a program that's 27 minutes game time or something like that. Can't remember exactly what it is. And if you've got through all the rounds up to that point and you've still got, let's say, 3 minutes of game time left, well, you might have more.
I feel like that's changed. I might be wrong. I feel like it used to be they did the missing vowels however long it needed to be the program the right length. And then they had one team on there who just got like 20 points on missing vowels or something because they were just hammering through them. So I think they've changed it to be a fixed amount of time.
Yeah, I know when we were on in series 10, basically however much time was left in the game. So if you solved your wall quickly, there would be more time on missing vowels. And so we deliberately, if we were ahead and were about to solve our wall, would hold off solving it because we didn't want to give any more time than we had to the opposition team. So it got termed wall stall, but I think they stopped that.
Yeah. I think they're trying to do more like talking about the questions, a bit more banter to do any kind of filling anything rather than making us sing for extended periods of time rather than
what I was saying was not based on experience. I mean, and just thinking it through, I think we probably had about 3 sets of vowels in every game. I think
most sets it's about that, isn't it? Sometimes you just get the first one as a 4th set, or sometimes you don't quite.
And to be fair, it makes sense as a change because it's not great fun viewing when you see a team who've basically solved the wall quickly and then spends 45 seconds going, so let's just run through that again just to make sure we understand, etc., just to eat up the time. So I understand why they did it. So the artists and subjects that they painted multiple times. this was what nailed it for you in the end, basically. Now, Andy, you were telling me something really interesting before we came on air.
Yeah.
Tell us about. So there was a critical buzz with both teams. I think you'd be buzzed in once, hadn't you? You got a point, so
I
you're
got
one
the
ahead.
Andy Walker one, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Sarah managed to buzz, and I think it was an accident. And she somehow managed to buzz before we could even see the missing vowel, the actual question. So we're staring at a blank screen thinking, are they going to make us answer without seeing any letters? And in the time that Victoria says more Porkians, it suddenly had appeared. But I mean, there was half a second, like there was no way we were going to get it.
Yeah, and that accounts for that kind of sitting there, having pressed and not saying
Yeah.
anything because you hadn't seen the actual clue at that point.
Like, I mean, if there's no consonants either, it's pretty. I mean, I'm pretty good, but I don't think I'm that good.
So unfortunate, Sarah, but again, we were chatting beforehand. You don't even get into the semi-final unless all members of your team contribute all the way through the
And I mean,
series.
like Sarah basically equalized us in the sequences round. This, like, we wouldn't have even been close without Sarah.
Yeah.
So it's and actually, if I remember rightly, the night before I've been talking about my kind of buzzer technique, and I'm slightly worried that it was all me because I was the one who'd been telling Sarah how to get in quicker on the buzzer. So she took it too far.
Well, I'd say, you've all played really well this series, and we get to see you once more. But definitely, there's no kind of there's no shame in trying to jump in on the buzzer in a tight match that. You could have sat back in your blocks and been beaten for speed by the Strigiform. So you have to kind of have to go for it. So
and she saved me having to do a tie break, which I'm internally grateful for.
But even having missed out on that point, it still fell to your captain Jonathan to pick it up. I was going to ask you, was there this sense of relief when he buzzed in and started speaking and it sounded right, but you didn't know you'd won? So at that point, were you thinking this had got you into a tie, or did you absolutely have no clue whatsoever how it was going?
I thought that if anything, it had got us into a tie, or that they'd still won, because, as you say, I mean, I thought it was incredibly close, and I'd forgotten in the sort of heat of the thing that if you get it wrong, you lose a point. If you see what I mean. So I thought that this might just edge us up to them again. So there we go.
So it did turn out you won. At 1 point victory. Andy, I know you've joked about, it saved me doing a tiebreaker, etc. But is there was there a sense of kind of if only, would have, should have, could have afterwards?
Like, if there was, it was very fleeting. I think actually the fact that because we're in this nice space where we've got to this stage of the competition again, where we're not, like, we've managed to lose one of our early matches, we got another match, we stayed in, and then we lost this one, but we still had another match. So actually, it's like we get to play again anyway. It's not like we've lost out on some massive prize or anything. And actually, probably from what I've seen, I've always enjoyed watching the third place playoff more than the final. So part of me feels like this is actually a win for us.
It's the game that everyone says they enjoy the most, because there's nothing really riding on it, and you can just play the game, and you love playing the game. And your team had the maximum number of games that it's possible to get. So
we're eternally grateful, and we had such a great time. And actually, like, the fact that we came within 1 point of the Strigiforms, who are like such a great team, like we're very proud of how we did.
Yeah, and you should be. Jonathan, you've obviously had to turn your minds to the grand final. Did you have long to kind of get your heads in gear for that?
I am trying. No, I think the answer is no. I mean, I think it was all, as I recall it, we basically were booked up for a long weekend, and we played the semi-finals on one day. I mean, I may be getting this wrong, but I think I'm getting it right. And did we not then play the third and fourth place and the final the following day, or was it another?
No,
trip?
because we were the
Andy
first
will
half of the
remember.
draw, so then there was basically a week, I think, where
Oh,
they did
that's it. You're
all of
right.
the second
Yeah.
half,
That's
and then
it.
we came back, I think, the following
And we came
weekend
back.
to do.
Yeah, we came back the following weekend for the third and fourth place final, and and you're right. Yeah, you're right. I'd forgotten that.
Yeah. So that week in between, what's that like, knowing you've got this looming championship match ahead of you?
It's I mean, by that stage, you can't do much more preparation than you've already done. So you just do a little bit of. I mean, I think, to be honest, I think we didn't really do any preparation until we travelled back up to Cardiff again, when we obviously did a bit the night before, and a bit on the morning.
Yeah.
But just sort of loosening up. I mean, you can't, there's no point at that stage in. It's like they always say with exams, there's no point in mugging up a lot of stuff at the last minute. You just can't do it. It's either in your head or it's not.
Yeah.
But it is interesting what you're saying about warming yourself up.
Yeah.
Because I've always wondered, and I actually did a survey on the channel at one point about whether people warm their brain up. Because I kind of feel sometimes my brain is slow starting if I'm doing a quiz, and I kind of get better during the day, particularly with buzzer quizzing or whatever. But whether people have tactics, I do remember being at the studio for Only Connect and being nervous. And I'm not the most athletic person, but I ran up and down the corridor to try and get some of the nervous energy out of me.
I mean,
Well,
what happens in the studio, and I don't know if it's the same for you, Andy. I mean, basically, on all the games that we did, as you know, Gareth, and and anybody who's done this, you have to be in the green room. You're probably in the green room an hour or two before you're actually being filmed. You can't really practice psychologically. You can't really sort of sit there practicing in the green room, apart from anything else. There's everybody else sitting around. So you're really just trying to engage in, as you say, Gareth, sort of a lot of sort of displacement activity, really, just to keep yourself sort of, reasonably relaxed.
I really rated Sarah for bringing in crosswords, because it was something that we kind of did quite slowly. We did together as a group, like both teams actually, with a Street of
we all started doing them together,
and it was kind of it felt like it was keeping our brains warm, but no one was stressed or pressure, like panically revising. It was just kind of keeping things ticking over.
Well, we look forward to 2 weeks' time. Then it's the third and fourth place playoff, which we look forward to because it's the fun one. Although Duncan says, unlike football, where the third place playoffs are a waste of time and nobody wants to play at it. Tell you what, I may have mentioned it more than a few times on the channel. We didn't get a third and fourth place playoff on our show, so we're still waiting for that call. We never got to play the fun one. So anyway, Mr. Wadey Cohen and producers, we are up for a special. The missing matches, and obviously then in 3 weeks' time it will be the grand final. We look forward to seeing the Strigiforms in there against either the Scrummagers or the Crustaceans, and next week's match should be fantastic. The they're just both brilliant teams, and it's been such a high caliber series. Jonathan, again, you were saying an interesting thing earlier in the chat about the number of tight matches that there's been in this series. It really speaks to not only the quality of the teams, but the quality of the casting.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. There's not, they're all sort of relatively evenly matched, I think. All the teams are relatively evenly matched.
Yeah, superb. Well, we look forward to what comes next. We are going to very quickly look at what is the question, and we'll come back and we'll have a look at Mastermind. Last week's What is a Question winner was described as a work of art by one All Things Quiz viewer. The answer was Leaf, and this question by Kelly Hamer won. Not to be confused with the Proclaimers song, photosynthesis in plants could be described as the action of sunshine on what? Well done, Kelly. This week's answer in need of a question is chocolate. People submitted their questions and you can now vote on the long list. Go to tinyurl.com/WITQ chocolate. Voting is open till Wednesday, when we'll announce a shortlist to try and find a winner. And if you want to submit questions for What is a Question, well, we release a new answer in need of question every Sunday morning on Facebook and Twitter. All you have to do is reply to that post with your question. Deadline for sending in questions is Monday at 4 p.m. We've had another comment in the chat. Duncan says Owls rule, which could mean he's a Sheffield Wednesday fan or a Stridgy fan. Unclear.
Well, Moorpork is also an owl, so.
Well, there you go. Everybody can take something from that comment. That's a long time since I read Terry Pratchett. I really should dive in again. And Chris is going top of League One. There you go. And I think that is Sheffield Wednesday.
Certainly is.
A team from Ankh-Morpork. So, Mastermind. A tight match, but a relatively low-scoring match. What did you make of the subjects that we had, specialist subjects?
I really enjoyed the First Ladies one, although I don't know if it's just because of where my interests lie. I'm more interested in that kind of thing than sport. It did seem odd to me that the First Ladies was from 1945 to present, and then the basketball MVP was 2000 to present. That for me, that felt like that's very I don't know. Seemed an odd kind of. I couldn't quite wake up.
I guess you have to be sort of slightly nerdish about this. First ladies get at least 4 years each, whereas presumably most valuable players are only one every year. So there's at least 4 times as many.
No, that's.
I don't know anything about most valuable players, but I assume that's the case.
Yeah,
potentially 4 times as many anyway.
It would definitely come down to how they've defined the topic as well, because
I'm sure that they have ways of making it fair.
I mean, to be honest, as Andy was saying, it's. I mean, I think I really enjoyed the First Lady's question, but it's as quite often with these things, it's on Mastermind. You know, if you know a bit about the special subject because it's something you're interested in, and I'm generally interested in politics and those sorts of things in the US, then it engages me. But looking at the other ones, you know, I know nothing about basketball actually, so you know. It wasn't very interesting. It's not a criticism of people who are interested in it, but it's just that's the point, really.
It's not the thing that excites me.
No.
Yeah. No, I did like that First Ladies one, the NBA MVP winners. You know, it's hard to know that the scale or scope of a subject, but when you started hearing that it wasn't just about the player, it's about who coached them, games they played in, and all that sort of quite a lot of
and
detail.
they did very well. I was like, I don't know if it's one of those things where when you know nothing about something and someone does know lots, you're like, wow, that's like. Whereas on this subject, you're like, well, yeah, everyone knows that. So, but yeah, it was very impressive.
And we had 2 sort of classic subjects in Tennessee Williams and Mithridates. Gerard saying he knows more about Mithridates than basketball. And Tennessee Williams, again, lots of plot points. We find that with a lot of the literature subjects, lots of details to try and get your head around.
Yeah, I thought they were quite tough, actually.
Yeah, I felt it tripped Sean up a little bit, and he couldn't get going. Also noticed something, and it's I guess it's a technique thing, and it goes into any quiz you play, but not to dwell on the one you just got wrong. And I think there was a number of times he was visibly kicking himself or thinking about the one that had just gone, and then another one comes along, and you're not quite listening to it right. It didn't happen for him, but he was great value on Twitter. His first comment on Twitter was something I probably shouldn't repeat in terms of the kind of lover he would be. So, you know, he said, he looks like the kind of... Anyway, so he made some sort of comment on that. And then he also made another self-deprecating comment afterwards. So I thought, good on you, mate. You've not had the best night, but you've come onto Twitter and you've got in the spirit of things. So well done to him. But then Rima, Ronan and Stephen, not much between them, as it turned out.
Yeah, could have gone anyway, really.
Yeah. And Stephen ended up winning it. There's a question in here about what do you make of the low scores in several heats of this year's Mastermind, casting issues, perhaps. I'm not convinced it's casting issues, because me being very nerdy when I'm doing this show, I'm noting down every answer. I'm noting down the number of questions they're asked. And I think what we saw tonight was specialist subject rounds where they got 11 or 12 questions each.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are getting 14 or 15 questions. And they're around sort of 16 to 18 in the general knowledge. But if the show tends towards the lower end of a range of number of questions, you're going to naturally get some lower scores. But yeah, I mean, it's the only
Because have they? I apologize, I don't know this, but have they changed the rule? Because I feel like in older series when I used to watch it, and this might be way back, there was a lot of like people interrupting when they knew the answer straight away, and I feel like that doesn't happen anymore. I don't know if that's a conscious decision.
there shouldn't be
But I think,
interruptions.
yeah,
And certainly under John Humphreys, when there were questions that would have like one sentence and then go into another, and people would answer after the first sentence, they'd have to then sit there and wait for the second sentence to be said and then answer again. So it always, I think, has had this thing of you wait till the end of the question, then answer, and if you can answer nice and quickly, you might be able to squeeze another question out. But the thing they haven't done this year, which they've done in the past, and haven't done for a few series, is in the semi-finals, including one of the high-scoring losers. But I guess for me, if an episode is balanced internally, that's all anyone can ask for. It doesn't really matter what other people scored in other shows, as long as it's fair on the show that you're on. So somebody could get 25 in a show where everybody's scoring highly, and somebody could get 20 in a score where everybody's scoring more lower numbers. But
has somebody done a sort of data analysis of this sort of over the years? I mean, there's a sort of slightly, as always with these things, a slightly sort of good old days feeling about it. Sort of, everybody always got higher scores in the past, blah, 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 blah. But I just don't know whether that's actually the case or not. I mean, I don't know whether there's a trend in either direction, and whether that reflects maybe just asking the questions more slowly. I mean, maybe maybe the production team just says we'll aim to get this many in the 2-minute section. So because if you have more than that, it's too much gabbling. I don't know.
Brendan's put they moderate within heats, not between heats, which is what I was saying. So the number of questions will vary from heat to heat. My experience under John Humphreys, because I did all my shows under him, was that my first episode, I think I got 16 specialist subject questions, next one 18. But by the time I last went on, he was like giving you like 12 questions. So definitely the questions were longer. He was probably a bit shorter. But you still get high scores. And as Michael will remind us, I can think of one heat winner of the series over 30. That would be Michael himself. So the scores are there. I do think there's rose-tinted specs about the past, particularly the Magnus Magnusson era, where questions tended to be shorter and perhaps a lot of general knowledge were a bit more surface level. So I think there is rose-tinted specs. I don't think anyone's done analysis. If anyone has, it would be Mastermind champion David Clark, who has a blog called Life After Mastermind, where he analyzes episodes. Where are we? Brendan's chipping in again. And the rule is you can't answer before the question has been read out. Hence, question length affects scoring capacity. So yes. So well done to Stephen Finn, who won tonight's show by a point, squeezed it in. The real measure of how these players compare is going to be in the semi-final, when we see how he does against people from other episodes. Now, before we go on and look at University Challenge, just want to say thank you to our patrons who support the channel. So thank you to all of those Patreon members. We're not too far off the next Patreon quiz, which will be on Sunday, whatever the last Sunday is of the month. And now I'm going to scare myself by worrying that it is this Sunday, which it is. So I'm going to have to get something sorted for this Sunday, as it turns out. But we do have that Patreon quiz, and we do have a few other things for our members. University Challenge. it's hard to kind of analyze this too deeply when one team is just so dominant and you can't really see much of the other team. Jonathan, you've been on the show. What did you make of it?
To be honest, when we were talking before we started this, I said that I'd watched about half of it and sort of slightly disengaged from the other half because it was so obvious the way it was going. And I think the trouble is, I mean, what I would say is that you see this happening. It's not, the gap is not a reflection of the difference in quizzing ability or quality of the teams. Quite often, if it's a big gap like this, it's quite often that basically after about 10 minutes, if one team is 100 points behind, psychologically you just sort of go, you slightly lose steam. It's quite difficult to just keep up the enthusiasm, and I think that happened a bit for Bangor looking at it. But I mean, maybe that's just my interpretation of it. I mean, they did keep trying. They did actually keep trying. I'm not suggesting they weren't keeping trying, but I mean, I think there's sort of psychologically, it's just difficult to stay on your toes that much when you can see that you've lost the match. It's just difficult. So that was rather what I made of it, because the questions they answered, at the beginning it was fine for the first 5 minutes or so. It was quite sort of evenly matched, and then it just, I don't know, they just lost a few on the run, and that's a bit what happens in University Challenge.
Yeah, I guess with any buzzer quiz, if you're going for the buzzer but you're just beaten to it, then it just kind of, what more can you be doing? But if you're going for it as quickly as you think as you can do, and still being beaten to it, and then the other team racks up the bonuses as well, you just get further and further behind, even though you might know the same stuff. You just being put out of sight. But they got the first and the third buzzes, and then I can't even count, 3, 6, 9, something like 8 or 9 consecutive Durham buzzes just put the game away. They got one more, but they did keep trying, but it was just relentless on the part of Durham. And I have to say, in particular, Harry Scully in seat 1, who played fantastically, got 8 starters. We had a brilliant Belcher, I think, last week, had a fantastic performance. Harry was the pick of the bunch tonight. So, I mean, a nice mix of questions, fictional clubs I liked. There was some good stuff in there, but it's hard to kind of come away from the match feeling excited when it's just been a procession. It's just been, you sit there and you're in awe of Durham. They played really, really well. But it's nothing quite like a match that goes down to the last question, guys? That's what the people want to see.
For the viewer. I mean, Paxman made a point at the end, which was, I think, just as a consolation to them. But he said, you did get to the second round, and actually that is an important point. I mean, this is a team that they got through the first round. They're not, and as we know, getting onto the show is you've only got about, of all the applicants, you've only got about a 1 in 5 chance of getting onto the show at all as a team. I think it's usually about 120 applicants and 28 places or whatever it is. And so they got on and they got through the first round. So they're not some, they're a good team.
Yeah, decent. Absolutely, absolutely. And they'll be disappointed they didn't get more points. But but Durham were just superb. So well done to that. Duncan has put a terrible pun in. Durham had a wonderful time the day they hammered Bangor. One for a certain generation. But yes. So well done to Durham. We look forward to seeing them in the next round. And let's have a look at the nominees now for Quizzer and Team of the Week. And when we come back, we'll look at Champagne Moment of the Day. Here are this week's nominees for Quizzer of the Week. Pam Baker for winning Wirral Quiz League's Mimir. Scott Blish for 13 out of 15 in Mimir as well. Bob DeCoe for an OQL Full House and 14 out of 15 in Pop Culture Challenge. Charles Dusting, Counterpoint's Heat 7 winner. Jonathan Gibson for 14 out of 15 in the Pop Culture Challenge. Alejandro Gonçalves, MVP in Quiz Nations Portugal this week. Victoria Gross for 13 out of 15 in Mimir as well. David Hodgson for winning the Ormskirk Quiz League's Mimir. Patrick Hope for an OQL USA Full House. Jeff King for an OQL USA Full House. Oliver Levy for an OQL Full House. Tonight's Mastermind winner, Paddy Pammont for 14 out of 15 in the Pop Culture Challenge. Matthew Spry for the only Quiz League of London Division 3, 7 out of 8. And Matt Williams for 14 out of 15 in the Pop Culture Challenge. And now for the team nominations. Got Your Six, who beat OQL USA's Division 5 Ruby Leaders, tonight's only Connect winners. Optimists for a big win over Greengage in Quiz League London Division 3. Quiz Machine kills Fascists for a preposterously good 28 out of 32 two-pointers in the online Quiz League. Motley Crue, the top scorers in Quiz Nations Asia Pacific. Tonight's University Challenge winner, Zabroing 747, who won the highest aggregate match in Quiz Nations Portugal this week, and Zero Gravitas, the top scorers in the Asian Quiz League's Premiership. You can now vote at tinyurl.com/QW20FEB23. That's tinyurl.com/QW20Feb23. And since that was recorded, we've added Harry Scully to the vote because we obviously didn't know that he was going to be quite so good tonight. So we've added him to the individual vote. And of course, we've got Stephen Finn, added him by name to the vote. We've added the Strigiforms by name onto the voting form. And we have added Durham University onto the voting form. So go on to there and cast your vote, and we'll announce the winner on Friday. So the end of another night of quizzing. What was your champagne moment, Andy?
Well, before I go to my actual one, can I just say getting through to the semi-final meant we got to have Christmas dinner on the day they filmed the Christmas specials, and for me that was like a big win. So that was like my secret off backstage champagne moment. But no, it had to be Sarah getting the numbers in that sequences. I think that it was a great get. She got it really early, and actually I think it kind of spurred us on in that round to do as well as we did.
Yeah, brilliant. Jonathan?
I was going to say the same on Sarah getting that, and also I thought the Milwaukeeans did a really good catch, as we were talking earlier on the music round, and picking that one up. I have my anti-champagne moment was when having got through my personal anti-champagne moment was when having got through 4 games without having been forced to sing. I saw Victoria fishing out these cue cards. And this sort of awful sinking feeling sort of went through me, and we had to do it. But that was my anti-champagne moment. But yeah, it was. No, I thought there were lots of good points in the game, as we discussed.
I mean, I guess when you're in that situation, you don't really have a choice, do you? You kind of got to go for it.
Yeah, we'd made a team decision that we're like, it's better just to go for it and commit than to half-heartedly do it. So.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I'm not sure what my champagne moment was. I like the clocks, and I like the animals in the Zodiac in that picture round. But I think it's just I really enjoyed the match. I really didn't know which way it was going to go all the way through. Didn't know, and it was only Connect quizzing at its best, at its most enjoyable. There was stuff you could join in with, and then there was stuff where you could sit back and go, how the hell did they get that? Which for me is kind of what you absolutely want in the show. You want to be impressed, but you also want to have a little bit of personal success. And for me, it fulfilled that perfectly. Pam's highlight was when Paxo said time, and her election was 8:50.
Brilliant.
Nice. Duncan, the highlight you see for me was confusing the Rite of Spring with Swan Lake and the Nutcracker. I did have to say, I just sat there next to Valerie and said, well, this sounds shit enough to be the Rite of Spring. And I was right. My knowledge of ballet is limited to abusing the Rite of Spring. And Catherine, again, it's playing along at home. My own champagne moment was getting 150 points on UC. Catherine, get yourself on some spurious course somewhere, OU or something like that, and get yourself on the show. But yes, wonderful. So thank you so much, both of you, for coming on. We know we get to see you both again once more, and the 3rd, 4th place playoff, and in the grand final in the case of the Strigiforms. So Good luck to both of you retrospectively, because obviously,
Yeah.
you know, you're not going to travel in time right now. But yes, so we hope that it's another couple of cracking matches. But we really appreciate you coming on and chatting about the show and the other shows tonight. And thanks to everybody who's been watching and chatting away in the chat. Don't forget, you can vote for What Is Question at tinyurl.com/WITQ chocolate. Voting is open till Wednesday. And you can vote now in the for Quizzer of the Week and Quiz Team of the Week at tinyurl.com/QW 20 Feb 23. I will leave you with this bombshell from Pam. I've got woodbine in my garden, and the nice scented variety. Pam, you're on form because we get chop. So thank you to everybody. We will see you again next week, when my guest will be whoever I can cajole to come on the show. Until then, look after yourselves. You know, the world is a terrifying place at times, but it's also a wonderful place when we get to enjoy such fantastic quizzing as we've had tonight. So we will see you again next week, and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Gareth.
Bye.